I'm Mary Latta Brown, and I'm in my 10th year of teaching middle school Bible at CPA, and my specific course is a survey of the Old Testament, 7th grade. And today's reading, or this week's reading, is the beginning of 2 Corinthians, the book that Paul wrote, his second letter to the church in Corinth. And Paul had started the Corinthian church some time ago on one of his missionary journeys, and you can read all about that in Acts chapter 18. We just read 1 Corinthians, which is the first letter Paul wrote to this church, but they are in need of some reminders. Keep in mind, there are 3 sections to 2 Corinthians. First, Paul reassures them that his reconciliation with them, he wants to reassure them that he has forgiven them. Secondly, he addresses the topic of their forgotten generosity. And finally, Paul challenges the remaining Corinthians who still are rejecting him. This week's readings cover the first section. Paul opens with gratitude that God has brought reconciliation between them. He makes it clear he's forgiven them and he wants an honest and open relationship. The reason why they had rejected Paul in the first place was because they had disregarded Paul as a credible leader and apostle. He was poor, he was under constant persecution, he was often homeless, and to top that off, he wasn't a very impressive public speaker. Once the Corinthians were exposed to other wealthier, sleeker, impressive Christian leaders, they started to think less of Paul, and eventually they became ashamed of him. Paul responds by first showing that the elevation of these leaders based on their wealth, eloquence, and success is a betrayal to Jesus and shows a totally distorted value system. Paul reminds them that true Christian leadership is not about status, wealth, self-promotion, or elegant speaking skills. Paul's job isn't to be impressive, but rather to point to the one who is impressive, the Lord Jesus Christ. In chapter 3, Paul answers their demands that he provide some letter of recommendation from the other apostles. But he states back to them, they, the church in Corinth, are the proof of his genuine leadership, and they themselves are his letter of recommendation, and reminds them that God has written his letter of love on their hearts. The Corinthians shouldn't need any more proof than that. Paul goes on to show how the paradox of the cross turns upside down the Corinthians' ideas of glory and success. Jesus' glory exaltation as king took place through suffering, execution, and death. Paul's ultimate goal is that his own life and ministry imitate the cross. Paul's way of life and leadership is actually the proof that he represents the risen Jesus. While Paul really wants to point them to the upside-down paradox of the cross, he is reminding them that that is the way of true discipleship. I hope you enjoy your reading this week, and for more resources, check out thebibleproject.com.